Okay, so I'm with Shane Miller, SW Miller. Shane, thanks for coming on. I didn't say hit record. This is the first interview where I'm like so lost in the conversation. I didn't say hit record. I hit record. So we're talking about a piece you wrote in the second chapter of your work in progress, the vampire novel, which I don't remember what episode it was, but we talked about the first episode. I just want to say he looks at the moon a lot, and that makes me happy. Anyway, we'll get to that. First, I want to talk about this: How to Write Brilliant Beginnings, that I purchased and read, and am going to review. I haven't finished it, but I'm going to pretend like I finished it for you. Yeah, but I did love it. So there's a couple things I love about it right off the top before I ask you questions. The first thing is your voice is great. It's super readable. It's very entertaining. I feel like when I read it that I was literally just like sitting at a coffee house with you, like talking about right in the beginning of the book. It's very vulnerable. I like in the beginning that you open up about like how you got, why you feel like you need beginnings. I'm not going to spoil that for the reader. You have to go get it and read it yourself.
Yes, you do.
And then you break it down into 9. Wait, is 9 right? 9 principles.
Yeah,
that you need to work on. Yeah. So they're very easy to grasp and understand. And I did find, like, I was reading it and I was like, oh man, that's something I don't think about at all. Like I was reading the one on the 5 senses of the setting. And I was like, I totally just disregard setting completely. And I see how that is not positive for my world building, reading your book. So yeah, so I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend people go get it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, what's your favorite of the 9 tips? What's your favorite one?
I do like the setting. I think one of my favorites is the grenade, which is the end one about essentially ending with the inciting incident, so that when the reader gets to the end of those sample pages, the first thing they're going to do is hit buy because they want to know what happens next. So yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, and I will say I totally feel I think a lot of times as writers we fail to end this chapter well, because I know, like, I write in short story format. So like I will sit down, I'll write for like an hour and a half at night, and I write like 2,000 words. And there's a natural, when you do that, when you're writing like a chapter a night, I think there's a natural like conclusion to the end of each chapter. Like you're taking all these chapters that are short stories and you're just piecing them together. And that's I really like your encouragement there to like drop a grenade at the end to like make them go on to the next chapter. And I don't think that's just beginnings. I think that's every.
Oh yeah.
I think that's wise advice for every chapter. Yeah, I also liked the invisible question. Was a great chapter, talking about like, you know, and you link it too with character development and like building out that like, you know, dropping in the opening this not openly stated but underlying question of like, hey, where's this going? What's going to happen here? I thought that was really great. So anyway, good job, man. Great book.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, everybody go get it. How to Write Brilliant Beginnings by Shane Miller. Yeah. Now you write fiction under SW Miller. So tell us about this. Tell us about what we're looking at.
So the piece I wrote is the second chapter of The Vampire and the Alchemists, which is my attempt to rewrite the novel that I very first wrote, which you referred to in the introduction of the Beginnings book, which was a pile of shit. Hopefully now not a pile of shit. So good.
No, I love the first one. Yeah, and by the way, I just want to take credit. You and I talked about your character talking to the moon before the TV show Moon Knight came out. So I was saying is that Disney listened to that episode and then decided to make Moon Knight. So
yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, they owe you money.
Exactly what happened.
That's 100% what happened. Okay, so what we're doing, what I want to do with you is, let's look at this first real quick. So I left you notes on your chapter, and I have very little notes because I actually don't know why you keep doing sessions with me, because your writing's so like strong and solid. But you have in this chapter, there was something I noticed. You have an issue in that one of your characters, her personality isn't grounded enough.
Mhm.
So it's Juliet. She is the character that turned your lead character. What's your lead character's name?
Dean. I nearly forgot then. Dean.
Dean, thank you. It's
Yeah.
like, well, it's in first person, so it's I all the time, so you don't see it very often on the page. Yeah, so you've got this character who sometimes her utterances are like compassionate. Sometimes her utterances are like star-crossed lover.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes her utterances are like badass. And sometimes her utterances are like terrified.
Yeah.
And so that's not, so let me say, complicated characters are fine. You can pull off a complicated character. But when I asked you, I was like, hey, do you want to talk about Juliet? You're like, I have no idea who she is. Yeah, so talking about how you knew, like, what does it feel like to write a character you don't know?
Oh, yeah, it feels tough.
How do you know when you don't know? That's my question. How do you know when you don't know?
So for example, when I write, in fact, I don't think I've ever had this with any other character. When I've written all my other characters, whether it be in my current series or this one, I kind of know broadly what they sound like and how to modulate their voice based on that baseline voice. And I thought I knew hers until I started writing her, and then different stuff started to come out. And I don't really know where to take her. So it feels confused.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that phrase you said, that's what I find often when I'm writing a character and I don't know what to do with them. Like what that phrase you said, I don't know where to take her, is when I'm like, okay, I don't have a grapple on this lead character because I don't know how she's growing or changing or moving. Yeah, and I think there's a couple ways to go about finding that. One is just to write it out. I don't recommend that because you end up rewriting the whole book.
Yep.
So, like, I did that. I had a book called Saving Deborah about this woman, Miriam, who goes to, she and her boyfriend, well, not really, she won't admit that he's her boyfriend. She and her friend steal a magic box that gives them superpowers, and they go to rescue their sister Deborah, who they think has been kidnapped, but they actually learn has given herself superpowers and is using them to rob banks in New York. So they go to save Deborah. I had no idea who Miriam was, and I wrote the whole book, and I figured it out in the last 2 chapters. I was like, oh, this is the journey. This is the journey she's on. So I had to go rewrite the whole book. I wasted a whole, and I threw most of it away. I wasted a whole 60,000 words because I couldn't figure out how this stupid character. And the problem is all your characters are related. So the way that like Dean moves is going to impact the way Juliet moves and the way the other characters move. So the other way to do this is to do what I want to do with you today, which may or may not be helpful, we'll find out, is to take the characters and line their character arcs up together and do the character you're struggling with last. To be like, okay, what character arc can we give her? What like personality can we give her that will complement this team, this cast together, so that we can figure out if she's an engine or an anchor. Is she helpful to Dean? Is she not helpful to Dean? Because that's really what you don't want to discover, is like 2/3 of the way through writing, you're like, oh, I thought she was helpful, but she's not. And that's where you're like, oh crap, now I got it. So my goal is to save you time. So we've got Dean and Juliet. Dean is a lone vampire living outside of his coven. Is coven the right word?
Colony, I think I called
colony.
it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, covens for witches. Yeah, Dean is a vampire living outside of his colony, who has like some self-loathing. Who else is a main character in this? And by main character, I mean like a character that either goes through some kind of growth during the book or that we're going to see routinely.
Okay, so we've got Gilbert or Gilbert, which is the leader of the colony.
Okay.
We have Garrett, who is another colony member.
Friend or foe?
Friend.
To Dean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then we have Amelie, who is also a colony member.
I lost my cards. Okay, Amelie. I'm gonna misspell that.
It's fine.
Amelie. Is that right? Yes. What is her relationship with Dean?
They have like they're not siblings, obviously, but in this context, they have a weird sibling rivalry thing.
Okay.
And then the last character who will
Is she
play...
also a future love interest?
Oh, no. Definitely not. And then the last character who we're going to see with him a lot is Cal or Callum. And he is...
K or C?
A, I think. Yeah, A. He is... Basically, as the story progresses, Dean goes back into the colony because he's called in, as you could probably tell from the end of that chapter, to help investigate a vampire death. And he ends up getting captured by this group of humans who are hunting the vampires, and Callum is another supernatural being that they've captured and is in prison with him.
Okay. So talk to me about Dean's going to get captured, you said. Talk to me about who Dean is at the beginning of the book.
So he hates being a vampire. He hates himself for the fact that he has to feed. He hates Juliet for turning him. And he hates Gilbert because of everything he represents, which is the colony. So basically, he's just full of hate at the start.
Okay. What's his personality like at the beginning? And I will say up front, like, so in normal, world, when we say someone's personality, it's, scientifically part nature, part nurture, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And so it's like, does personality change? Does it not change? Like, I tend to buy into the theory that personality changes based on traumatic events, because I took a personality test when I was in college, right before my dad died, and then my dad died, and then I took another personality test, and it came out radically different. And then 6 months or a year later, I took another personality test, and again, it was different. So, like, it's one of those, like, does your personality change? Like, I think so, based on traumatic events, but that's real world stuff. We're talking fake world when we build fake world. So for the sake of a character arc, the personality or the character, which is expressed through the character voice, is the way that when I use that word, I'm referring to the way that character holds themselves in the world, right? The space in which that character relates to other people. So we're not giving this character a personality test at the beginning and the end, right? What we're doing is, when we use the word personality, when we're talking about writing, we're talking about the character's intentional and unintentional presentation to the people they're around. So how you take up space with other people around you is the character's personality. For sake. So we've got this like self-loathing. What does that look like in his voice? How does that play out? What does he sound like?
Yeah, I think his cadence is usually quite short.
I would totally agree.
After reading 2 chapters, he's he's holding back. Like the whole thing about his vampire nature is restraint, or he's trying to be restrained and fight against that nature. So I feel like that comes out in his voice, as in he wouldn't give too much away when he speaks, unless somebody presses his button. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of anger wrapped up in what's happened to him as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Reading his card. So if we've got words, body language, cadence, pacing for him. His cadence, I think you're right, is those short sentences.
Yeah.
Paired with rich inner thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is important because it's I wonder if I can make this smaller. Let me see what I can do. I can. Look at that. So we've got his cadence is this short paired with this rich inner thought. His pacing, I find that he's responding a lot. Is that true outside of these two chapters? That like he doesn't start conversations.
Oh no.
He tends to stay silent and then only talks when he has something to say. Does that make sense?
Exactly. That is exactly how he is now at the start of the novel. Yeah.
Now he's at the start of the novel. We've got these short sentences with this rich inner thought. He doesn't start conversations verbally. Let me make sure I'm not making that up. His I want to say, yeah, I'm not making that up. His body language tends to precede what he says. So
yeah.
If we look here, we'll start here. I fixed her with a glare. Well, there's no point in keeping it there. A faint hint of crept in her cheeks and ran thought. I thumbed the power button, waiting for the phone to load. Heavy silence between us. Let her stew. She deserved it. 21 missed calls, bled her lip. Home, the word exploded from me like a witch's curse. Where exactly is that? So let's get into his explosiveness in a minute, because that's part of his like modulation. But here we go again. I laughed, a harsh bitter sound causing a caustic edge. Right, you've got this, I shook my head so violently in anger I couldn't accept what she was saying. You've got this like his cadence, his pacing, his body language precedes his speaking. What that's doing is giving him this like, and then this is that rich inner thought I'm talking about, right? A heavy weight dropped into my stomach. Silent tears streamed down Juliana's cheeks. No, it couldn't be. All the while the moon stared down at me, its bright admonishing me. Yay, moon. Fucking. A small whimper escaped her, right? Like, so you've got this, he's very observational, which is part of his body language. And then yeah, part of his cadence is that his body language precedes thought, which gives him, that's what I was saying, it gives him this like explosive tendency where emotions build and then he verbalizes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he's like holding back and then he's like, ha, 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 boom, like here are the words, right? Like it's that, yeah. And his words are very aggressive. He makes a lot of declaratory statements. Right, like he's not asking a lot of questions. He's just not. He's a lot of accusations. Anything else you'd say about his voice?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. The only thing we haven't touched on, and you won't have seen yet because he hasn't been put in a situation where it happens, but if he's with people he feels comfortable around, like when the dog was in the scene, for example,
yeah,
he goes all soppy, or like more, not soppy, that's the wrong word.
Yeah,
he opens up a bit more.
He definitely has a like contemplative, like if we're talking about the dialogue Daisy and like I would say this is in the first couple chapters, this is his baseline voice, meaning this is where we see him mostly interacting with other people. He has a modulation that's like thoughtful, right? Like, so if we're going to spell out his whole voice, I would say that he's got a like, this is his baseline, but then he's got a like, if we're gonna make it into a real daisy, then he's got his like thoughtful voice, which would be like a modulation over here. Oh, wrong button. Which would be like a modulation over here, where it's like in this thoughtful voice, he leans into that. So when I think about, Shane, I know you probably know this, but I'm saying this for everybody. When I think about when you think about modulation, you're exaggerating some aspects of a character's voice and you're minimizing others, right? So like the character's voice doesn't change. It just like parts of it are like, okay, I'm gonna let this part shine and I'm gonna bring down this part. So in his thoughtful voice, that explosiveness slows and the inside becomes outside. Because his inside voice is actually very like questioning and contemplative and thoughtful.
Yeah.
It's his outside voice that's explosive, right? Yeah. Anything else about his voice you want to be like, yeah, that's another modulation he has that maybe I haven't seen?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Where is Dean going in the story?
In terms of plot or character, or
in terms of character arc. So you've got this guy. This is his voice. We've got this thoughtful expression of him, and he hates himself.
Yeah.
And then we're going to take him on this journey. Right? He's going to get captured. He's going to meet Callan. All these things are going to happen. I assume at some point there's a rescue. There's going to be some kind of reveal that Gilbert is actually the asshole. Maybe. Okay, I'm just guessing.
Potentially. He is an asshole, but not in that way.
No, look, there isn't a plot you can write that people haven't already read.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, so I can guess. Me guessing at plot points isn't magic. It's just like, I'm looking at your cast of characters, right? The minute you said there's a colony leader, I'm like, okay, well, that guy's either he's a great mentor and he's going to die, or he's an asshole who's probably responsible for things. And you're like, oh, Emily's the sibling rivalry. Okay, well, they're clearly coming together by the end of the book. That's why I ask if she's a love interest, right? Because this is the Percy Jackson trope of like, I hate Annabeth, and she's really hot.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh, Callan's a fellow prisoner. Well, either Callan's going to die or Callan's behind. Right? Like these are your two options in the plot. So this is when we start laying out our cast of characters and we start talking about like, this is the archetype role they fill. What we're really doing is building our plot. And that's part of the reason I think you're struggling with Juliet, is because you don't quite know how she falls in Dean's transformation.
No, I don't. And I forgot one character, possibly the most important character, who is the main villain.
Okay.
Who is Malcolm Frost.
Oh, great fucking name, yeah.
And he is the guy behind this group of humans that are hunting vampires, or not just vampires, any supernatural creature.
Okay. Oh, I hate that name's so good. Damn it. Okay. Names are a problem for me. That's why my most recent protagonist is named Tim. Okay. So talk to me about.
Great book, though.
Huh? Oh, thanks.
Great book, though.
Only I can get people to buy it. Okay, so talk to me about how. I'll just say so, because this is an indie author thing that I think new authors need to hear. When you generate your own sales, like when you're an indie author and you're like running your own marketing and doing your own thing, especially in a book launch, when you have a tragedy happen, like say an in-law dying that you have to like do the funeral for, all marketing for me stopped. Like I was cranking out like 2 or 3 social media posts a day. I'm running Amazon ads. I'm watching them every day. I'm like playing with my metrics, I'm like doing all my things. I'm reaching out to podcast hosts. I'm like, can I be on your podcast? Can I be on your podcast? And then like for like a week, I was like, oh, now I'm sad. I'm not doing any of that anymore. And it's like, oh man, that kills all momentum. So it's like I was getting like sales every day. I was like, sale. I was like, yes, this rocks. And then I went and looked at it yesterday. I was like, 5 days of no sales. Yeah, I did that to myself. So
yeah, because it's all on you, right?
It's all on you. As an Indian, it's all on you. Yeah. So if you disappear, so do your sales. So now I gotta like start up again. I'm like, hey everybody, remember the book I wrote? You can still buy it. Okay. So Dean is he hates himself. Okay, so where's he going? How does he end?
In a state of acceptance with himself.
Describe that.
I don't know, because I haven't got that far yet. I think he is still not comfortable with being what he is, but he at least accepts it. It's in the following novels in the series that he becomes comfortable.
Okay. Does he accept it with everybody or trusted people?
Oh, he still doesn't want anything to do with the colony at the end of the book. That hasn't changed. He goes back for the specific reason that one of the colony members has been killed and it was somebody he liked.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason he gets entangled with them again. He's not, when it gets to the end, he's not as frustrated with them, but he still doesn't want to be a part of them.
So they go get him. This guy dies. They go get him. Is he special to the colony, or are they getting everybody?
No, they're getting him. They're gathering the whole colony.
Okay.
And he technically, even though he doesn't want to be part of it, he technically still is, because he made an agreement.
So this is an all call. This is like everybody come home.
Yeah, because it's not safe. So you've all got to come back.
Are there other characters that hate the colony that are coming back too? Does Emily live with the colony?
Yeah, the people that I've mentioned, the other vampires that I've mentioned, all live with the colony, and I haven't much thought about anyone else who might come back into the colony yet, to be honest.
Okay, let's put a pin in that. How much have you written already?
What I've given you.
Okay, great. Good. No, that's great. Okay. So he's moving toward acceptance. He still hates himself. And he still hates the colony. Who does he not hate at the end of the book that he hates?
So by the end, he doesn't. I'm going to have to drop a spoiler to explain.
That's okay. You've only written 2 chapters. We've got like 6 months before you finish this book. And by the time you finish it, the spoiler won't actually be a spoiler because you're going to change it.
It'll be different anyway.
Yeah, we're just getting character arcs down. It doesn't matter what the actual plot beats are.
Sorry, that's my number one futuristic thinking. Like the book is already written. It's not written.
So it's not written. Well, it's not written, and like nobody cares about spoilers. Like this.
No, they don't. That's true. They don't.
They do. Like people do care about spoilers, but they don't care about spoilers in that the plot points. Because, like I said, if you watch enough story, I can usually tell you the plot points of a movie.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, well, here's where we're going. I'm in it for the character journey, and so is everybody else. So,
and that's why nobody watches movies with writers.
That's right, because we wreck it. My wife hates that one.
Okay,
we used to play a game when we were dating where she'd be like, because I'm a strategic thinker, like strategy is my number one strength.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was doing this before I was a writer. Like movies, like stories were a big puzzle to me that I was like, oh, I'm going to figure this crap out. So she'd be like, we'd sit down in a movie when we were dating. She used to think it was funny. And she'd be like, all right, 5 minutes in, she's like, tell me how it ends. I'd be like, this is what's going to happen. And she'd think it was cute. And then like, I'd get it right. And she'd be so pissed. She'd be like, you ruined the movie. I was like, why did you ask me? So yeah, anyway. So that's my top 3 strengths at work there.
That's brilliant.
Strategic, individualization, and context. So I take everything as an individual thing. I puzzle it out and fix it. And what I know in the past will determine how this thing ends in the future.
Oh, that is crazy. Context is like my number 34.
Is it really? Oh, it's my number. Yeah, futurist is my number 34. I don't care.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The only thing that matters is what happened in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, so which really actually hurts book sales, because I'll be like, why would I do that marketing? My last book that I didn't sell. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? And it's never gonna work. It's never gonna work. So anyway, it's very pessimistic.
Oh,
right. All right. So he's going from acceptance with himself to not being comfortable. See, I told you we need an hour and a half for this one, because I'm just gonna ramble. I'm just gonna ramble about it.
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. Who does this acceptance come out with? Like, who do we see him accepting?
By the end, he basically Gilbert sends him and Juliet to track these people down.
Okay.
And they trick him and Juliet, and they both get captured. So they're captured together.
Okay.
They are then forced to spend, as you can imagine, a lot of time together. And they essentially work out most of their shit. And then the all is lost moment is actually that she jumps in front of a crossbow bolt to save Dean's life, and she dies.
Okay.
So she is going to die at the 75%, but by the end, he is accepting of her, and she does make a reappearance in the form of a resurrection in the next book.
Okay.
So she is going to come back. So that's one person he feels comfortable with. He always feels comfortable with Garrett, regardless, because they're like brothers almost.
What does she represent to him?
At the start, she represents everything he hates, because she's the one who turned him. And I don't know if, oh yeah, I did include it. So in the opening chapters, there's this flashback where we see a scene of him keep saying no, no. And she just keeps telling him, I'm going to make everything better. And obviously she turns him. So for him, that's a key piece that I've left out, because I'm not explaining myself properly. So they knew each other like before, when she was human. So they were both human. They both went to college together, and they were in a relationship, quite a serious relationship.
Yeah.
And then she basically disappears off the face of the earth, comes back as a vampire, and he doesn't know. And then he's involved they go to a club and they start talking. She nearly bites him, feels guilty, and runs out. He runs after her, and then he gets hit by a car and nearly dies. And that's why she turns him, because she can't bear to live without him, kind of thing. But he will die if she doesn't turn him, because he's broken from this car crash.
Okay. So she still loves him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Deeply.
Okay. So
she to the extent that she went against. So when the flashback comes to fruition and she turns him, it's to the extent that she asked Gilbert for permission to turn him, because they should seek permission from the colony leader. He says no, and she does it anyway.
Gotcha. So I know why you're struggling with this character.
Yeah.
Because your story in a relationship actually starts at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have a timeline.
Yeah.
We have the relationship here, right? We have the world before, right? We have where they're just humans and dating and having a great time.
Yeah.
You have to define her personality here.
Yeah.
Because then there's the pivotal moment where, she vamps him. And his response to that breaks her. So her breaking point is here.
Yeah. Exactly.
So when we meet her, she's broken.
Yeah.
And so part of the reason I have a feeling that her personality is scattershot is because during your story, she's half and half. She's looking for this person.
Yeah.
But she's living as this person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, definitely.
So for her, this, we're going to call this her broken personality. The guilt, the longing for the past, the still loves him. You don't seem to be writing any anger into her, right? You have a lot of compassion. So there does seem to be a little bit of like in her, a little bit of exhaustion with him, in that, like, if you were to tell this story from her perspective and the colony leader was like, hey, I need you to go get Dean, you could almost see her being like, oh, like what? Like, yeah. Why? Not, like I hate Dean, but like, no. Why are you making me do that?
Yeah, why me particularly?
Yeah, why are you
somebody else?
Yeah, sending me? You know how I feel about him. You know our history. Like, why are you doing that? So when she shows up, there's like a protective reluctance. Yeah, I think is what you're going for.
Yeah, I think so.
Seriously,
and I think he would have sent her because it's almost like he's never forgiven her for telling him because he said no.
Ooh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? So she basically disobeyed him, which is like completely. Yeah. But he like his word is law, and she's broken it. And
yeah, that's great. So we're just gonna keep that note in mind because we'll talk about your supporting cast in a minute. Punitive asshole.
Oh man, my mind is blown. That's so cool.
So my hope is that as we like archetype these characters, this book is just going to fly out of you. Because once you have the character arcs, I find that once you have the character arcs down, you're just writing to completion, right? Like once you know where they're going and the beats fall out. Like in a second, we're going to start talking about the beats that you need, and they're just going to fall out with these two. So let's talk about Juliet in their original relationship.
Yeah.
And let's talk about Dean in their original relationship.
Yeah.
What were they like then?
So she is, or was, loving, but with a feisty side, I would say. Which is what attracted him to her in the first place.
Is she, do you do Enneagram?
I know of Enneagram.
Okay, we won't use it then. Extroverted or introverted? Wait, different scale.
Okay.
Loves the party or loves the cause?
Oh, the party.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. She's a 7 on the Enneagram, by the way.
Okay.
So when you put feisty, right, and you're like, okay, where does feisty come from? Feisty either comes from loves the cause, then she's an 8. Or feisty comes from loves the party, then she's a 7. So she's a 7. All of the Enneagram nerds are now like, that's not right, you're ruining the Enneagram. Yeah, write me letters, come at me, we can fight about it. Look, I'm a 1 and I'm feisty. No, you're not. So I'm gonna get letters. Okay.
Man, I feel like every time I come on this show, you alienate some listeners somewhere.
Oh, that's my goal. You know what? I said it like a couple months ago. My personal motto is "You'll be sorry."
This is true.
You did this to yourself.
This is true.
Everybody's not listening anymore. We talk about whatever we want. Okay, so feisty, loves the party, probably avoids conflict. Like wants the party to continue. Right?
Yeah, would rather like she wants.
Yeah, would rather kind of bury that conflict than like.
I think she's got a side. So I'd say if somebody was, this is probably a modulation, but I'd say if somebody was threatening somebody she loved, for example, that would be a different story. But in general terms, then she would want to avoid conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's a 7 wing 8, by the way, for your Enneagram. If she flat out avoided conflict all the time, she'd be a 7 wing 6. Okay, so then we have broken. Well, before we get to early Juliet, let's talk early Dean.
Okay.
What did Dean look like in this relationship?
So he was very open. He was actually a fun-loving person.
Still
and
probably
he would
quiet though.
Quite, yeah, I'd say reserved, but with a quiet humor. Maybe that's probably what I'd say. And then
so they're going to a party.
Yeah.
He's going because she's going, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't want to be there.
She wants to go. He doesn't really want to be there, but he's going for her.
Does he feel more secure when he can logic something, when he can so does he feel more secure when he can understand something, when something falls into the preset rules in his head that he already has, when he can create something new, or when he can control something?
That's tough. I think.
You want me to give them to you again?
No. I think the whole thing, and I've only just realized this now, but the whole thing he hates about being a vampire is the lack of control. Because he's has to feed and he doesn't want to. So I think the latter, the last one.
Okay. And he's got a running monologue in his head all the time.
Yeah.
Does he see possibilities in that running option? Like, so a problem occurs. Does he see like, okay, there's 3 different ways we could do this? Or a problem occurs and he's just like, I just desperately need to get out of this.
Is this his beginning personality before?
Pre-Dean,
everything?
Yeah.
Okay. And what were the 2 options, sorry?
I can see like 3 different ways out of this and I don't know which one to take. Or I just want to get away from this as fast as I can.
I'd say he has an edge of optimism, so probably 3 ways, but I don't know which one to take. Indecisive.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a 6 on the Enneagram.
Okay.
So he reads like a 6. There's a running 6s have what they call an inner committee, which means there's a running monologue in your head all the time. You're constantly like weighing options and where to go, and it can be paralyzing because there's like a fear. The other way I was taking you is a 9 on the Enneagram. This is just a case, like, you want to back this stuff up at some point. 9 on the Enneagrams are peacemakers. They don't like conflict. They don't know what to do with it, and they tend to get really frustrated when it happens because they don't know. They either lean to a 1, which means that they like lean into an pre-established set of rules that's like, okay, this is how I understand the world, and anything outside of that sucks, and I don't want anything to do with it. Or they lean into the 8, which is like pure rage. So like my son Logan is a 9. We call him the bear. He's super chill. He's like you cannot shake him. He's just like even keeled. But man, if you push him into a corner, watch out. Because that even keel, those claws are coming out. And like he will fight you. But like you gotta push him. But when you push him, he leans into that justice 8 and he's like ready to go toe to toe. And it's never about himself. He doesn't care about himself. It's about like things being unfair in the world.
Yeah.
If he finds somebody else being mistreated, oh, here comes the bear. So yeah, it sucks because he's a good athlete and I'm constantly trying to get him to like engage that side of his rage for sports, but he doesn't see sports as an injustice, so he doesn't care. So he can't like engage it in like competitive things. So I was like, if you could just turn it on while you're playing basketball, it'd be great. And he's like, yeah, that's not why the Hulk comes out. I'm like, I know. So anyway, okay, that was a total weird aside. Early Dean. So we've got fun-loving, open person, still reserved, quiet humor, hangs behind Juliet, probably likes being around her because there's an admiration there. and then
Yeah.
like she is like the life of the party and he just likes to be in her orbit.
Yeah.
There's a fear base to him, which goes into his self-loathing and avoiding of the colony. Because in the end, and what you'll need to know to write this version of Dean is that self-loathing comes from fear.
Yeah.
It comes from that like feel, like you said it, like lack of control. He's afraid of who he is, of who the colony is, of what this world is. And so in dealing with it, he's hiding behind hate.
Yeah.
Right? So as we talk about who he becomes, his acceptance is not being unafraid. That's your inversion. Your inversion is him becoming comfortable with who he is. At the end of this book, his acceptance is understanding he's afraid.
Yeah.
Right? Understanding the root of where this comes from. So that's where we're going. So when they work crap out together, this is where you're going to need a moment where Juliet tells him, you don't need to be afraid. That's the big reveal. You don't need to be afraid.
Yeah.
Right? And for her, this is going to be a don't you see how amazing you are?
Mm.
Right? And it's not a like, don't you see how amazing you are as a vampire? It's like, which is what he's going to, so the first time she says it, that's how he's going to take it. Is like, vampires suck. And then we're going to need another scene where she drives it home and she's like, that was a fun pun, where she drives it home and she's like, no, don't you see how amazing you are? You. What was his profession before? Did he have any hobbies? Can I suggest one?
Yeah, go for it.
Make him an astronomer.
Yes.
He's an amateur astronomer. He has to be.
Yeah.
Right? Because now he hates the moon.
Yes.
Right? But he used to think the moon was beautiful.
Yeah.
And so for him,
but that's almost like a parallel with Juliet too.
Yeah. And for him,
oh, amazing.
Right, like, and this is what we want to do. We want to line all of these metaphors up and have all these themes line up so that we get this big penultimate moment when she dies. You know, he needs the confession, you're beautiful.
And
I'm beautiful, and the moon is like, the world is beautiful. I don't hate the world. The world is beautiful. You're a part of the world. My reconciliation with the moon is part of the world, right? Like, so this is going to be a grieving acceptance.
Yeah.
Right. So let's finish Juliet, and then we're going to do one more character, because what you need here is a character that's actually making the world shitty.
Yeah.
And it cannot be Malcolm Frost.
Okay.
Right? Malcolm Frost is Dean. These two have to be the same.
Yeah.
He also hates vampires. He also thinks that they're destroying the world. He also thinks they're crappy. He also thinks they should all die. And so Dean and Malcolm, like, Dean needs to connect to Malcolm at first. And then the argument Juliet needs to have is, no, we are just who we are. And you are beautiful in who you are. Right? It's that argument of love of like, I don't care whether you're a human or a vampire, you've always been Dean.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just looking for a way for you to keep being Dean, because Dean is awesome. Right.
Yeah.
So what we need, though, is a character who is making vampires, or is encouraging vampires to behave in a way that makes Dean hate them.
Yeah.
And that can be Emily. That can be Garrett. Right? That can be Gilbert. It can be any of them. but we need one of these three to be the representation of what Dean hates, because Dean needs to be able to point to somebody and be like, look. And Juliet needs to say, that's not about being a vampire, that's about being an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? Because Dean's like, we became this thing and it ruined everything. And Juliet's like, no, we are who we are. And I'm getting a visit from my 7-year-old. Excuse me, everyone in the podcast, excuse me for a minute. Hey, as long as there's no volume. Okay. He's like, can I play on the video game system right in front of you while you're recording? As long as there's no volume, we'll see if that works. Oh man, working from your basement. So anyway, does that make sense though? That like,
yeah,
this is his journey. The journey of self-acceptance is the journey to return to this.
Yeah.
This is what they're trying. This is what Juliet's fighting for. Right? So if you've got Juliet feisty, loving, loves to party, we need to see moments where she is still this.
Yeah.
Right? Especially early on in the version of her, she needs to modulate when they're with the colony, when she's with people, that actually that she is old Juliet.
Yeah.
And he needs to be attracted to it, and he needs to be angry about it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
How have you not changed? Right? We need moments, we need a party at the colony early on, some kind of dinner, some kind of homecoming. All of these people are coming home.
Yeah.
We need some kind of homecoming where she's laughing and talking to people, and he needs to have a flashback to their life before they were turned.
Yeah.
Right. I think this is the hard part for us as authors, is a lot of times we start the story in our minds where the story in the book starts, but we have to understand that we're actually just taking a snapshot of a character's life. And there needs to, if you really want a rich character, there needs to be a pre this life, right? So this is your pre this life, and then where we're picking up the story is angry Dean, who's afraid and lost and hiding, and confused Juliet, who doesn't know how to fix the person she loves. So there's been avoidance here. There's been some like, I don't want to deal with you because I can't fix you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're a problem I can't avoid. By the way, classic 7 in me.
Yeah.
You're a problem I can't. My daughter's a 7, and if there is a person that like she doesn't know what to do with, that person is just out of mind. As much as until they aren't, right? Until they aren't. But as much as they can, they just don't want to deal with it. So Juliet has been living in like, I don't want to deal with you, doing this. So let's talk about, is this all helpful?
Very, yeah, hugely helpful.
And so what's your plot? What Juliet's hope is Juliet wants to come from here back to here.
Yeah.
Right? But this never happens.
Yeah.
This never happens. So they're going to come here, which is before she dies, which is a Dean who confesses his fear, and a Juliet who affirms their love.
Yeah.
That's your killer moment.
Yeah.
Where we all swung.
Mm-hmm.
For Dean, Juliet is actually the hero of the story.
Yeah.
Right? So she is the engine. When we talk about engines and anchors, people who make us our best selves and people who make us our worst selves, Juliet is the engine. You're going to need her, especially when they're captured and things are dark. You're going to need her to laugh to herself. And he's going to be like, what?
Yeah.
She's going to be like, you remember that time And he's gonna be like, yeah. She's gonna be like, no, seriously. That was hysterical. You remember you did that thing and that thing? And that guy did that thing, and then we all laughed about it. Ideally, it's gonna be something that's like a little justice driven that he did to impress her, but that she loved because he actually like put some asshole in their place, or like, did something like, you remember that time that guy was like totally ruining the party, but just talking about himself all the time. So you roofied his drink. And David's like, yeah, I don't really want to remember that. And she's like, why not? That was amazing. That was the best. And then like we all watched him pass out. It was really funny. And then the party like continued without him. That was awesome. And then Dee needs to like laugh a little bit. And then he needs to go back to being like, no, we're vampires, right? Like, so it's that kind of like, so for her voice, let's talk about her voice. You need 2 modulations.
Yeah.
You need sad, this is broken and I don't know what to do about it modulation. That needs to be a little, if we're talking words, body language, cadence, and pacing. The cadence needs to be like quick, not the cadence. Words need to be like direct and focused on the issue at hand, because she's avoiding.
Yeah.
Right. Cadence, she needs to like cut things off. She needs to keep it to the point. So she's going to drive back to like, hey, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then her pacing, remember, this is her modulation of broken.
Yeah.
Right, where she said her pacing needs to be take control. Conversation. Because she, you can make her body language whatever you want. I would actually keep her body language the same in both modulations.
Okay.
So give her a tick that he loves.
Yeah.
Let her play with her hair.
Yeah.
Right. Let her do something that he finds very alluring or attractive. Yeah. So maybe she like in conversation when she's thinking, she like rubs her neck, right? Like that can be something that he's like, oh, or she like twirls a ringlet, right? Like something that he finds, very alluring. Or she rubs the back of her neck, right? Like something that like some action she does when she's thinking that he has always found cute. And you want to keep that in both modulations.
Yeah.
Right. So that's her broken modulation. Her fun-loving modulation, this is going to be suppressed. Right. And she's going to kind of revel in the moment. So she's not direct, she's not moving things forward because she's not avoiding anything, right? Like when she's party Juliet, when she's like happy Juliet, she's gonna be that like, I just like being around these people. She's still gonna take control of the conversation, but it's a different type of control. In that she's not taking, because her words have modulated, she's not taking control of the conversation to end it, she's keeping the party going. So she's the one that's like calling out the silent person in the room and pulling them into the party, right? And it's part of what he loves about her, is because he was the silent nerd in the room that she did at the party, right? Like for him, being around her is like orbiting the sun, right? Like, so it's that kind of like, he loves being around her because of how bright she is. But when we've got broken and I failed to rescue him, Juliet, and I'm struggling to handle that. When she's struggling to be around him, she's that like, I just want to get away from you because you remind me of the fact that like we used to be something we're not anymore.
Yeah.
So as they're captured, we need to see, so before they're captured, we need to see glimpses of old Juliet.
Yeah.
As they're captured, we need to see glimpses of this together. And then he's constantly pulling away from it.
Yeah.
And use that explosive. He needs to drift into thoughtful. So when we talk about his early voice, it's going to sound like that thoughtful voice, but just a less sobbing. Right? So we talked about how in that thoughtful voice, the inside becomes outside. Well, imagine that inside, if the inside is actually happy to be where it is. It doesn't mean he talks a lot. He doesn't become Juliet. He's not super expressive. He's still extremely observant, but in that like inside voice, in that like healthy Dean voice, he's the guy who has the fun one-liner. He doesn't talk a lot, but when he does, he gets Juliet's attention. Right? What you're writing in Dean is now he's a badass vampire, but what he was before was the somewhat the outsider that everyone thinks is like weird and brooding, but is actually just a little shy.
Yeah.
And when you get to know him, he's really funny. But you have to create space for him. And what Juliet saw that and created the space for him. And that's what brought them together, is he's very observant, he's very thoughtful, and he's actually quite funny. He's just not a stand-up comedian. So he's going to toss in a one line every once in a while. Right? Like, so you want scenes when they're captured and they're having a conversation where he cracks a joke that she thinks is hysterical. And it's just a one-line, cynical, very thoughtful and observant thing. And that's when she's going to pull out a memory. You remember that time you did that thing with that thing? That was amazing.
Yeah.
Right? And then he needs to be like, well, that's over. And she needs to be like, only because you want it to be. Or actually, I would make her very insightful and be like, only because you're scared for it to start.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
like,
brilliant.
Yeah. So having that, like, so now you've got their arc, right? And you can start to see the things, and you need them to fix the relationship before she dies.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
yeah.
I've got bad news for you. When you bring her back in book 2, memory wipe.
Yeah, she's going to be basically, I've got this whole thing where if you take a vampire's ashes and do something to them that I haven't quite worked out yet, she will become a banshee. So she will not be herself. She's going to be completely single-mindedly focused on killing Dean. That is the whole purpose that she's brought back.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's so fun. She's not, until the very end when he finally gets through to her in book 2, she's not going to be herself.
Yeah, so he's going to be fighting in book 2 for this.
Yeah.
And he's going to get this because she's a completely different person.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to keep the body tick.
Yeah,
you got to keep the body tick. Whatever that body language tick is, that has to stay, because he has to see it and go, she's still there. Right? Like, so be strategic with what that is.
Yeah.
Because she needs to do it when she's thinking. Because you want her doing it when she's confused, and you want her doing it when she's having fun. Right? It just needs to be something she does.
Mm-hmm.
So then when she's thinking about how to torture him, she can do it again. And that could, yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this third character. We got about 15 minutes left. Well, let me ask you. So how confident are you feeling in her voice? Are you starting to feel her a little bit more?
Definitely, yeah. 100%.
Okay. You have a moment in chapter 3 where she gets explosive. It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. She's never gonna blow up at him. She's gonna become exasperated with him. where she's just like, why do you have to be like this?
Yeah, that's good.
Right. She's never, and she's constantly going to be calling him back to. She, I don't know if you want to do this or not, but this is just a wild hair. It might be fun if she notices him talking to them.
Oh yeah.
If she knows him so well that she knows when he's talking to them. If that was something he actually did before he was a vampire.
Yeah, she could be like, oh, you're doing that thing again.
Yeah, you're doing that thing again. You're talking to the stars again. You're in your head. It's funny. My wife is an 8 on the Enneagram, and I am a hardcore 6. And I get in my head a lot. And I have a best friend named Corey too. He'll do this to me all the time. But we'll be like sitting somewhere, and I'll just be sitting in silence, and he'll be like, "You're in your head again, aren't you?" Or like my wife will be like, "Take what's on the inside and bring it outside." She's like, "Let me have it too." I'll be like, "Oh." So yeah. Sometimes I'm like, if I were ready to bring it on the outside, I would have brought it on the outside. But that's, it's that kind of like that hyper observant, thoughtful person can really feel seen when somebody understands that they're actually not quiet and shy. They just, that being quiet and shy doesn't mean they don't have thoughts. It just means they're not sharing them. So that makes a shy person feel seen when they're like, oh, you understand that I actually have this rich inner life. I just don't readily vocalize. I don't verbally vomit it at everybody like you do. So anyway, he can't say that to her though, because he actually loves the fact that she's
of course.
Yeah. So okay, so you've got her voice, you're feeling her, you got to take away those moments in here of anger, you've got to take away those moments. When she gets playful, it's because she's trying to draw out the old Dean. So she needs to get playful in response to him doing things that remind her of who he used to be. Right?
Yeah, perfect.
So in this conversation, I'm trying to think of a good moment in this conversation where she's going to get playful with him. Despite the fact that he's like being kind of an ass about it. Anytime he says something funny, she's not going to, when he explodes, she's going to retreat because that's not the Dean she likes.
Yeah.
So like here, stop dicking around who died. This is a good retreat. She hesitated and she said, I'm sorry. Right? Like he gets angry. She gets compassionate and still. Right? By the way, excellent dropping the grenade at the end of the chapter. As we talked about before. Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking in here for, I whipped around to face her. What the hell did you think? Sorry, I didn't. Right? Like, again, she's retreating when he gets angry. You said they. Now, here's where you start to lose her. Her brow creased. What? No, she needs to stay in that, like, she needs to waver between compassion for him and exasperation with him. So instead of her brow creased, what? This needs to be like, you said they, and she needs to be like, come on. Right? Like, just can you just come back to the colony? Like, why are we doing this here? Can we just like Garrett will tell you everything. Can we just go, like, can we just leave? Right? Like, it's that kind of like you're stuck in a car with an ex that is acting like an ass, and you're like, can you just get out of my car? Right? Like, that's kind of how you want her to feel. Like, stop doing this. Yeah, you have a moment here where she explodes, and I wanted to talk about that for a second. This is a great line for her. I told him you'd react like that. That's gonna piss him off because she's talking to other people about him. That feels like a betrayal. That's gonna make it, even though he's being an ass and is like broken up the relationship, he's gonna feel betrayed that she does that. So that's gonna like set him off. She spun, here it is. She spun around so fast, her form blow. I'm nobody's minion. You know me better than that. That's not how she's gonna respond.
No. Yeah.
That might be how she responds to Garrett. Or that might, like, that strong attack might be how she responds to somebody who's causing injustice that she's like pissed about, but with him, she's gonna avoid.
Yeah.
And so this is gonna be more like a, can we just like, my job was to get you and tell you to come home.
That's all I want.
That's all I want. I don't want to be here.
this.
I don't want to do this with you. You know, it's that like, she's got to be the reasonable party in the ex-spat.
Where so it's kind of more like a tired, exasperated, as opposed to
where he's being the ex who like remove the fact that they're vampires. He's being the ex that's kind of being an asshole, that is clearly in the wrong. And you know, you've got the John Cusack character going here, who's like broody and self-loathing and clearly in the wrong. And she's the one that's like, come on. Yeah, I'm thinking of Cusack's role in High Fidelity is very similar to this relationship, where his love is just trying to move on because he's such an asshole. And she can't, though. When she's in real pain, she comes back to him, right? But he continues to be, and there's moments where they're talking and she's just like, come on. Especially when he blows up. She's just like, I don't want this. So anyway, that's the spot I was thinking of, where I'm like, she can't round on him like that. That's not who she is.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, completely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about this third. Well, you'll need, I'm just going to tell you what you need in this cast.
Okay.
Rotating around these two characters, right?
Yeah.
Let's not think of this as a vampire cast. Let's think of this as a romantic comedy. Okay. So you need the dude that is trying to woo her.
Yeah.
Right? That she doesn't have any interest in, but that he feels weirdly jealous about. Even though he hates all of the vampires, he really doesn't like this dude. And she needs to note that jealousy at some point. And be like, you're jealous. And he goes, no, I'm not. I don't care any of this. Right? Yeah. So you gotta have that dude. You gotta have the dude that's like, and he needs to be like the vampire of vampires, right? Like he needs to have a little like coiffed hair and the like perfect teeth and the rippling abs. All of those things. Very charming. He also needs to be a villain, clearly. You need the character that's like, I don't know why we're even bringing this dude back.
Yeah.
In future books, that character is potentially a reluctant partner.
Yeah.
But you got to set that character up in this book. To be the like, I don't know, like why is he going with her on this mission, right? Type thing. Like why, if we're going to rescue captured prisoners, or we're going to hunt these humans, why in the hell are we taking Dean? Let him go back to his stupid apartment, or at best, let's use him as bait.
Yeah.
Right. Like you need that character who just does not care about him and is mad that he's left the colony, right? But that's going to end up being his partner in book 2, whoever that character is.
Yeah.
In book 3, likely the jealousy of Juliet will come in from that character, right? The like, I don't like that you're so close to them and you're not so close to me. Once Juliet becomes herself again. You've got the Malcolm Frost character, who is the character that Dean is like, no, he's right.
Yeah.
And Juliet needs to be like, he's not. Right? Like he's not. He's wrong. But that's Malcolm Frost is going to be Dean's anchor, in that he encourages the worst side of Dean. The self-loathing, the self-hatred, the brooding. Like Malcolm Frost is going to like give him justification for that. Somewhere in here, you need a wise mentor. who is likely someone Juliet trusts and cares for.
Yeah.
In book 3, they're going to be the one that encourage. In book 2, they're going to be the one that encourages Dean to go find her.
Yeah.
In book 2, they're probably the person she kills.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you need your Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Not Obi-Wan like the new show, because the new show is.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah,
no.
But Obi-Wan and the idea of like the wise mentor that's kind of like really chill and doesn't really get riled about anything.
Yeah.
And that most people have disregarded as like, oh, he's the old school of what we do. He's not really around. He doesn't really understand us anymore. He's
stuck in his ways.
But Juliet really cares for and sees the like. You got to introduce that character
here. Nice.
Yeah, he probably needs to come. You need to introduce him early as someone Juliet cares about and trust. That party scene, that's where Dean definitely knows this character.
Yeah.
This character definitely tried to help Dean assimilate and failed.
Yeah.
And so at the party we get introduced to him. He or she is going to be a big deal when Juliet dies.
Yeah.
This is the one that puts their arm around Dean and is like, hey, you're going to be okay. When they're like, we're going to bring Juliet back, this is the guy that's like, that's not a good
idea. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
So those are the characters you need in your cast. You probably need, I don't know. At some point, you probably need a sidekick.
Yeah. No, there will be.
Yeah. Who's like, so Dean has that like hiding, brooding, dark. You need the sidekick who's the like fun-loving peacemaker who just wants to like have a good time.
That's going to be Callan.
Okay, that's great. He needs to be younger and weaker than Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need a childlike quality because he needs to be somebody Dean wants to protect.
Cool.
In fact, if you can make him a teenager, that would be ideal.
Brilliant. Even better. Yeah.
If you can make him like, you don't want him so young that you have to write a kid voice because kid voices suck to write.
Yeah.
But you want him at but you also don't want him mature enough so that he's making wise decisions.
Yeah.
So you want him in that like rare stage that's like 15, 16.
Yeah.
Where you're all hormones and you're all like, you don't quite yet see the consequences of your actions.
Yeah.
But you want him good natured.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you make it so Dean is heterosexual. Dean's not bisexual, is he? He's heterosexual. No. Okay. Well, I guess it depends on the sexual preference of the sidekick. Because if you make them sexually compatible, at some point the sidekick's gonna have a crush on Dean, and you're gonna have to deal with that. That's very Percy Jackson, and I can't remember the kid.
Oh yeah,
the son of Hades, who ends up getting a crush on Percy, and then they have to like kind of work it out. They need that affirming moment where Percy's like, "Hey, like, I love you, but not like that, right?" Like so. I can't. Man, why can't I remember that character's name? Tom is yelling at both of us right now. He's like screaming from Maine above us. Yeah. He's like, he had his own book. So Nico. Haha, I got it. Thanks, Tom. Nico is the character. So that like the younger is powerful in and of himself because we're in an urban fantasy, but is kind of see Nico's are, and this is how like personalities work out in a cast. Percy is not Dean. Right, Percy is very like life for the party, enjoys being around people. Percy is almost Juliet. So when you're pairing Percy with a like love interest, you grab somebody like Nico, who's dark and brooding, right? Like it's so Nico's like dark and brooding and inner thought all the time and no external words. And so Percy's very surprised when Nico confesses his love, because Nico's been having this conversation inside his own head the whole time about how, you know, amazing and how Percy is, and isn't it great that we're hanging out together, while Percy's just like enjoying the party, right? Like, so it's that like, yeah, Nico is not, I don't want, like, just because I'm using Percy and Nico as an illustration doesn't mean that like you need to write a Nico, because two dark and brooding characters in the cast. Here's the other rule you need to maintain with this cast. The only other character who's dark and like brooding like Dean has to be that partner that hates him.
Yeah.
No one else is allowed to be dark and brooding.
Yeah.
Just the partner that hates him. And that partner that hates him, because you've made Juliet, just talking Enneagram language, because you made Juliet the enthusiast, which is the 7, and you've made Dean the loyalist, which is the 6, that partner that doesn't understand why he's around and is constantly questioning, she's the 8. She's the justice warrior.
Yeah.
It's all about the cause. It's all about the colony. It's all about protecting her people. And Dean is, because Dean is not in on that mission, Dean has no value. Right? Like it's that kind of, he is that partner character has to be the, you're for me or you're against me.
Yes, that's
and
amazing.
You are against me, so I am done with you. But the minute Dean is for her, that's when she'll start to like come around. That's in book 2. She'll start to come around because she realizes that Dean is actually changing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. All right. Was this helpful?
Really helpful. Yeah, you've clarified a lot.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to stop the recording and we can just chat a little bit. Maybe I'm going to stop the recording if I'm doing